How Groom's family forced me to give my inheritance to ex-husband, but an unknown stranger exposed them. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we dive in, I have a favor that means the world. Hit that subscribe button. Every click isn't just a number. It's a spark that keeps these stories alive, voices heard, and shared truths that might otherwise go unnoticed. And while you're at it, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Because together, we're not just sharing stories, we're building a community, spreading hope, and proving that every voice matters. Don't just watch, be part of something bigger. Emma had never been the kind of woman who sought attention. She was quiet, observant, and often found more comfort in books than in people. Her late grandmother used to call her an old soul, someone who loved peace more than noise. But that peace had come at a price. Loneliness. Since her grandmother's passing, the large old house on the edge of Brookdale had felt emptier than ever. Her days were simple. Coffee at sunrise, a walk with her golden retriever Milo, and long hours sorting through her grandmother's papers, trying to make sense of the trust fund left in her name. Money never excited Emma. It made her nervous, actually. It drew people who smiled too quickly, complimented too easily, and disappeared once they got what they wanted. Still, she tried to live like her grandmother would have wanted, kindly, but cautiously. It was a chilly autumn evening when her friend Lucy convinced her to attend the annual Brookdale Charity Gala. "You need to get out," Lucy had insisted, tugging on Emma's arm. "It's for the animal shelter. You'll love it. And who knows, maybe you'll meet someone who isn't trying to scam you out of your inheritance." Emma had laughed softly, thinking Lucy was being dramatic. But she went anyway, wearing a simple navy dress that hugged her waist and fell just below her knees. Her hair, usually tied up, lowered freely down her shoulders. For the first time in months, she felt almost alive. The gala was held in a glass-walled ballroom overlooking the city lights. People in tailored suits and sparkling gowns floated across the room like they belonged to another world. Emma stood this by the refreshment table, sipping water and pretending not to feel out of place. That's when she heard a voice behind her, warm, confident, with a hint of humor. "Let me guess. You're either allergic to champagne or hiding from someone." She turned, startled, and found herself looking into a pair of sharp blue eyes. The man was tall, maybe early 30s, with an easy smile that could disarm anyone. He wore his tux like he was born in it, but his demeanor wasn't arrogant, just relaxed, magnetic. "I'm just observing," Emma said, a little embarrassed. He grinned. "Ah, an observer. The rare kind who actually sees people instead of performing for them. I like that." His name was Ryan Carter. He introduced himself with a firm handshake and an almost boyish charm. They talked for nearly an hour, about her love for animals, his work in real estate, and their shared dislike for small talk. He made her laugh more times than she could count. When the event ended, Ryan insisted on walking her to her car. He didn't ask for her number immediately, but the next morning a bouquet of white tulips arrived at her doorstep with a note. "For the observer who didn't need champagne to shine." She smiled for the first time in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Ryan called often. He was attentive without being pushy, affectionate without being suffocating. He asked about her grandmother, listened when she talked about her loneliness, and remembered the smallest details, her favorite coffee, the way she always tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. When he finally took her to meet his family, Emma felt something close to happiness. Ryan's mother, Margot, was the picture of grace, elegant, poised, and impeccably dressed. Her gray eyes softened when she saw Emma. "Oh, you're even prettier than Ryan said," she said warmly, pulling her into a hug. His sister, Ashley, was in her early 20s, lively and chatty. She immediately linked arms with Emma and gave her a tour of the family's mansion, a sprawling modern home with glass staircases and soft jazz playing in the background. From that day on, Margot and Ashley treated Emma like she belonged. They invited her to dinners, shopping trips, and quiet weekends at their lake house. Margot often said things like, "You bring out the best in Ryan," and "You're such a good influence, dear." For Emma, who had spent so long alone, their warmth was overwhelming. She started to believe she'd finally found the family she never had. Ryan's father had passed away years ago, and Margot often mentioned how proud he would have been to see his son so happy. The family bond seemed so genuine that Emma's doubts slowly faded. Ryan proposed after 6 months, on the same lake dock where they'd watched the sunrise together weeks before. The water was still, reflecting the morning light, and when he knelt with a small velvet box, Emma's breath caught. "Emma," he said softly, "I've loved you from the moment I saw you standing there in that blue dress. You make me want to be better. Will you marry me?" She couldn't speak at first. Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded, and he slid the ring on her finger. Margot and Ashley came running from the house, cheering. There was laughter, champagne, and endless photos. It all felt perfect. Too perfect, maybe, but she told herself she deserved it. As the wedding plans began, Margot insisted on helping with every detail. She called daily, offered to introduce Emma to the family lawyer, and even volunteered to handle some of the financial paperwork related to the marriage license. Emma, though cautious, felt flattered. Margot said she just wanted to protect them both, to make sure things were fair. Ryan reassured her. "My mom's just old-fashioned. She wants everything done properly." Still, small moments made Emma uneasy. Once, while helping Margot organize wedding documents, she noticed a strange expression cross the older woman's face as she glanced at a folder labeled Inheritance Trust, Emma Grace. Margot quickly changed the subject. At another family dinner, when Emma mentioned how her grandmother's estate was finally cleared and the trust funds had been transferred to her name, Ryan's eyes flickered, not with excitement, but with calculation. He covered it quickly, joking, "Guess I'll have to be extra nice to you now." Everyone laughed, but something about the way Margot looked at him made Emma's stomach tighten. Still, she brushed it off. Love wasn't supposed to be suspicious. Love was supposed to trust. Weeks passed. Ryan grew busier with work trips, but his mother and sister filled the gaps. They texted Emma daily, called her sweetheart, and often showed up unannounced to keep her company. Ashley confessed one night, after a few glasses of wine, that she envied Emma. "You're so lucky," she said, leaning in. "Ryan never brings girls home. You're the only one Mom really approves of." "Really?" Emma smiled, touched. Ashley nodded. "Mom says you're special. She says this marriage will finally set things right for our family." "Set things right?" Emma repeated softly. Ashley froze for a second, then laughed it off. "Oh, you know, she just means Ryan will finally settle down." But Emma couldn't shake the phrase. Set things right. What did that mean? Late that night, as she lay awake beside a sleeping Ryan, she thought about it. The laughter, the warmth, the constant presence of his family. It all felt rehearsed, too synchronized, like everyone was playing a role perfectly. Yet every time she doubted, Ryan pulled her back with tenderness. A kiss on her forehead, a quiet, "I love you," or the way he'd squeeze her hand when she got nervous. He made her feel safe again, loved again. Maybe she was just overthinking, or maybe, deep down, she already knew something was wrong. Because no love story is perfect, and sometimes the ones that seem flawless are the ones most carefully constructed. The weeks leading up to the wedding felt like a dream Emma couldn't quite believe she was living. There were bridal fittings, cake tastings, floral arrangements, and Margot, always there, orchestrating every detail with quiet authority. "Don't stress, dear," Margot would say, brushing invisible lint off Emma's sleeve. You just focus on being a beautiful bride. Leave the boring logistics to us." Ryan would nod in agreement, smiling his easy, reassuring smile. "She's right, Em. Mom's been through this before. She loves planning." Emma wanted to believe them. She told herself it was kindness, not control. She told herself that this family, who had folded her into their circle so effortlessly, truly cared for her. But small cracks began to show. One afternoon, while Emma was sitting with Margot and Ashley at the dining table reviewing seating charts, she noticed Margot had another folder tucked beneath the tablecloth. When she shifted slightly, Emma caught a glimpse of her own name on the page, typed in bold at the top of what looked like a financial document. Before Emma could ask, Margot smiled smoothly and closed the folder. Oh, that's just a checklist, dear. You know me, I like to stay organized." Emma forced a smile, but her curiosity lingered. Later that night, she mentioned it to Ryan as they prepared for bed. "Your mom had some papers today with my name on them. I didn't get a good look, but it didn't seem like wedding stuff." Ryan chuckled softly, pulling her close. "You're adorable when you get suspicious." "I'm not being suspicious, I just—" "Em," he said, kissing her forehead. "Mom helps with everyone's paperwork. It's what she does. She helped my cousin, too. Don't overthink it, okay?" His tone was light, but there was a firmness underneath, a subtle edge that told her to drop it. So she did. But the uneasy feeling didn't go away. A few days later, Emma went shopping with Ashley for wedding accessories. They laughed over jewelry, tried on veils, and took silly photos together. It was easy to forget the tension for a while. Ashley seemed genuine, even protective, like the little sister Emma never had. But during lunch, when Emma excused herself to take a call, she returned to find Ashley hurriedly locking her phone and looking startled. "Everything okay?" Emma asked lightly. "Yeah," Ashley said too quickly. "Just texting Mom." Emma tried to laugh it off, but she caught a glimpse of the screen before Ashley tucked it away. There had been a photo of Emma, taken just seconds before at the table. She didn't say anything. Not yet. By the end of the month, Margot suggested Emma move some of her funds into a joint trust before the wedding. "It's just a formality," Margot said sweetly over tea. "Once you're married, everything's shared anyway. This is just for efficiency. Ryan's father set something similar up for us when we married. It's tradition." Emma hesitated. "I don't know. I'd rather wait until after the wedding." Ryan reached for her hand. "It's really no big deal, babe. Mom just wants everything streamlined before the honeymoon. You know how organized she is." Emma smiled faintly, but the word streamlined echoed in her head all night. The next morning, she called her grandmother's lawyer, Mr. Hayes. He'd been with their family for decades. "Mr. Hayes," she said hesitantly, "is there any legal reason to merge my trust before marriage?" His pause was long. "Not unless you want to," he said finally. "Why? Did someone suggest that?" No, she said quickly, glancing toward the window where Ryan's car was parked. "Just curious." When she hung up, her stomach twisted. She didn't tell Ryan about the call, but she began paying closer attention. The night of Ryan's bachelor dinner, Emma went to his family's house to drop off a forgotten cufflink box. Margot had said they'd be home late, celebrating. She expected the house to be quiet. But as she approached the door, she heard laughter. She paused. The voices were familiar. Ryan, Margot, and Ashley. "She actually called her lawyer," Ashley was saying between giggles. "Of course she did," Margot replied, her tone icy and amused. "But it doesn't matter. The papers will be signed before she even realizes what she's given away." Ryan's voice joined in, calm and low. "She trusts me. That's all that matters." Emma's heart slammed against her chest. Margot laughed again. Poor girl. She really thinks this family adores her. Just a few more weeks until the papers are signed, and then, well, we'll see how fast she keeps smiling. Emma's breath hitched. She stumbled back from the door, gripping the railing, her vision blurred with tears. No, this couldn't be real. They couldn't be talking about her. She stepped back quietly, her heels crunching on the gravel, and ran to her car. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely fit the key into the ignition. The drive home was a blur. Her chest ached, her stomach knotted, her mind replaying their laughter again and again. She didn't sleep that night. By morning, she looked pale, hollow-eyed. Her coffee went cold in her hands as she stared at her engagement ring. Every word, every touch, every "I love you" from Ryan now felt poisoned. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe she'd misunderstood. Maybe it was some kind of joke. But deep down, she knew. That night, when Ryan came over, she couldn't hold it in any longer. He greeted her with his usual smile, leaning in for a kiss, but she pulled away. "Emma?" he said softly. "What's wrong?" Her voice shook. "I went to your mother's house last night." He blinked. "Okay. I heard you. All of you. Talking about me." Her throat tightened. "Margot said something about my inheritance, about signing papers. You laughed. She swallowed hard, tears burning in her eyes. "You said I trusted you." For a moment, Ryan just stared at her, unreadable. The room felt suffocatingly still. Then slowly, he smiled. It wasn't his usual smile, the charming, easy one that had melted her heart months ago. This one was colder, thinner. He took a small step closer, eyes locked on hers. "You weren't supposed to hear that yet." "Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we dive in, I have a favor that means the world. Hit that subscribe button. Every click isn't just a number. It's a spark that keeps these stories alive, voices heard, and shared truths that might otherwise go unnoticed. And while you're at it, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Because together, we're not just sharing stories, we're building a community, spreading hope, and proving that every voice matters. Don't just watch, be part of something bigger. Emma stood frozen after those words left Ryan's mouth. You weren't supposed to hear that yet. The sound of them echoed in her mind long after he walked out of her house that night, leaving behind a silence so heavy it seemed to crush her. She didn't cry right away. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of coffee she'd poured hours before. The clock ticked, the refrigerator hummed, and her thoughts spun in circles. Maybe he hadn't meant it. Maybe he was just angry or teasing. People said cruel things, sometimes when cornered. But the look in his eyes hadn't been anger. It was calm, cold, knowing. Like he'd been waiting for her to find out, just not yet. The next morning, Ryan showed up at her door holding flowers, acting as if nothing had happened. "Hey, beautiful," he said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. "You look tired. Rough night?" Emma pulled back slightly. "You know what kind of night I had." He frowned softly, tilting his head in concern. "Still upset about yesterday?" "Babe, I didn't mean anything by that. I was joking. You always take things too seriously." Her throat tightened. "You weren't joking, Ryan. I heard you, your mom, and Ashley talking about my inheritance, about papers. You were laughing about me." He sighed, cutting her off. "Emma, listen to yourself. You're twisting things. You always do this, create problems that don't exist." She blinked. "What?" "Yeah," he continued smoothly, brushing a hand through his hair. "You hear one thing, and suddenly you've built this whole story in your head. My mom probably said something about wedding documents. You took it out of context." "I know what I heard," she whispered. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then maybe you should ask yourself why you don't trust me." The sentence hit her like a slap. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, his eyes softening again. "You think I'm using you? After everything I've done, after all the love I've shown you. She wanted to argue, to tell him that love didn't sound like the laughter she'd heard that night, but the guilt in his voice made her hesitate. He exhaled, shaking his head. You know what this is, Em? It's fear. You're scared of being happy, and you're trying to ruin it before it starts. Emma's lips trembled. That's not true. Then prove it, he said gently. Trust me, like you said you would. He took her hand and pressed it to his chest. His heartbeat was steady, strong. His eyes glistened with what looked like sincerity. You and me, babe. That's all that matters. Don't let your imagination destroy what we have. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to erase the image of Margot's smirk and Ashley's laughter from her memory. By the time he left, the flowers sat on her counter, and she found herself wondering if she had overreacted. The next few days were filled with apologies, mostly hers. Ryan texted her good morning every day, sent her videos of wedding venues, and called just to say he missed her. Slowly, her anger melted into confusion, and confusion turned into guilt. When she saw Margot again, the older woman acted like nothing had happened. Darling, I heard you weren't feeling well. Stress, I imagine. Weddings can make any woman emotional. Emma nodded weakly. I guess I've just been tired. Margot smiled, the kind of smile that was both sympathetic and dismissive. You poor thing. You know, Ryan worries about you. He told me how hard it's been for you to trust after your grandmother's passing. I understand, truly. But sometimes, my dear, love means letting go of control. Emma's stomach twisted. What do you mean? Margot leaned forward, her voice low and soothing. Marriage is partnership. No his, no hers, only ours. Ryan and I talked, and we think it might ease your anxiety if we handled the financial side of things together. That way you can just enjoy your marriage instead of worrying about money or paperwork. Emma's eyes widened slightly. Handle the financial side? Yes, Margot said smoothly. Our family lawyer, Mr. Daniels, advised that you consolidate assets before marriage. It's quite common, saves you from complicated taxes later. You'd still have access to everything, of course. It's just about efficiency. Emma hesitated. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice in her head. Never sign what you don't understand. I don't know, she said softly. I'd rather speak to my lawyer first. Margot's smile didn't falter, but something sharp flickered in her eyes. Of course, dear. But that might delay the wedding. Mr. Daniels is quite busy, and the sooner we finalize, the better, for everyone. It's just paperwork, Emma, nothing more. Ryan entered the room then, wrapping an arm around Emma's shoulders. Everything okay here? Margot beamed. We were just talking about the trust forms, darling. Ryan kissed Emma's cheek. You're not worrying about that again, are you? I just want to be careful, she said quietly. He chuckled. You and your overthinking. It's one of the things I love about you. But babe, this is just legal stuff. Mom knows what she's doing. Don't make it bigger than it is. Emma nodded slowly, her throat dry. That night, she sat by the window in her grandmother's study, the same place where she used to sit as a child, listening to bedtime stories. She looked at the portrait above the fireplace, her grandmother, strong and kind, the type of woman who would never let anyone take advantage of her. Emma whispered, What would you do, Grandma? The house creaked in response, old and wise, as if it understood her pain. Her phone buzzed, a message from Ryan. Ryan, you still love me, right? Emma, of course I do. Ryan, then trust me. Sign the documents tomorrow. I promise it'll make everything smoother for us. I just want us to start our marriage right. She stared at the message for a long time. Her chest ached. Her instincts screamed no. but her heart whispered yes. She typed back, "Okay, tomorrow." The next morning, Margot arrived in a crisp white suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Her perfume filled the room, strong and expensive. She greeted Emma with her usual elegance and motioned toward the table. "Let's get this out of the way so we can focus on happier things," she said cheerfully. Mr. Daniels, the family lawyer, joined them via video call. He was polite, professional, and spoke quickly, explaining things in words Emma didn't quite grasp: joint ownership, marital consolidation, trust transfers. It all blurred together. Ryan sat beside her, holding her hand the whole time. "You doing great, babe," he whispered. "Almost done." When the document was placed in front of her, she hesitated. Her name was printed neatly beside his. Margot smiled reassuringly. "It's just procedure, sweetheart." Emma took a deep breath, her heart pounding. Her grandmother's voice echoed faintly in her mind again. "Read everything." But Ryan squeezed her hand gently, and she looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had once made her feel safe. "Trust me," he said softly. And she did. Her signature glided across the page. Margot clapped her hands lightly. "Wonderful, that's done. Now let's talk about your honeymoon destination." Ryan kissed Emma's forehead, whispering, "See? Easy." She smiled weakly, pretending to feel relief instead of the faint dread crawling under her skin. That night, after everyone left, she sat alone at the table, staring at the empty space where the papers had been. The pen mark on her name felt like a scar she couldn't erase. Something deep inside her whispered that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. The wedding was beautiful, at least on the surface. A perfect spring afternoon, soft sunlight, and the scent of roses drifting through the air. Emma looked stunning in a lace gown that shimmered with every step, her hair pinned with tiny white F lowers. Ryan smiled at her like a man in love. Margot dabbed at her eyes during the vows. Ashley threw petals and squealed when they kissed. Everyone said it was a fairy tale, and for a moment Emma almost believed it was. But even fairy tales have shadows. From the first day of their honeymoon, Ryan changed. The warmth that used to pour from him now came in short, calculated bursts. He wasn't cruel, just distant, detached. He spent hours on his phone, claiming it was work. He laughed less, slept facing away from her. Emma told herself it was stress, that he was tired, that she just needed to be patient. But each passing day made the silence between them louder. When they returned home, Margot and Ashley greeted them like royalty, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There were hushed phone calls she wasn't part of, late-night whispers in the hall, and occasional glances between them that stopped the moment she looked up. One evening, while Ryan was in the shower, she went to the study to look for a book. On the desk sat a manila envelope with her name faintly visible through the flap. Her hand trembled as she opened it. Inside was a copy of the trust transfer she'd signed. Only this one was stamped, executed and finalized. Her inheritance was no longer hers. Every cent, every property, every investment, all under Ryan's name. She felt the blood drain from her face. The room spun. When Ryan came downstairs, she confronted him, voice shaking. "What is this, Ryan?" He glanced at the paper and shrugged. "It's the trust. We talked about it, remember?" "You told me I'd still have access, that it was just for taxes." "And you do," he said, his tone too calm. "We're married, Emma. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. Why are you acting like I stole something from you?" "Because you did," she cried. "You manipulated me. You made me sign without understanding." He laughed quietly, shaking his head. "God, you're dramatic. I didn't make you do anything. You signed it. You made the choice." Tears filled her eyes. "You lied to me." He looked at her then, not with anger, but something worse. Pity. "You really are too emotional, for your own good." That night he didn't come to bed. She sat in the dark, clutching her grandmother's old shawl, feeling her world collapse piece by piece. Days turned into weeks. Ryan became a stranger living in her house. He barely spoke to her, and when he did, his words were cold and clipped. Margot stopped visiting, and Ashley's once cheerful texts vanished completely. Emma tried calling, but no one answered. Even when she went to their house, the gate was locked. One morning she received an envelope in the mail. There was no return address, just her name written neatly on the front. Inside was a stack of papers. Her hands shook as she flipped through them. Petition for divorce, filed 2 days after she'd signed her inheritance transfer. The air left her lungs. She reread the date 3 times, her heart hammering harder each time. She tried calling Ryan. No answer. She texted him, begged him to explain, left voicemails that went unanswered. Hours later, she received a message, just 1 sentence. "Ryan, it's better this way." She stared at it until the letters blurred. Her phone slipped from her hand. She sank to the floor, the papers scattered around her like ashes of a life she thought she built. How could he do this? How could someone look her in the eyes, promise forever, and then destroy her so effortlessly? The following days blurred into one long nightmare. She barely ate, barely slept. Her lawyer told her the case was airtight. Since the funds were legally transferred before the marriage, Ryan had full control. "He can't just take everything," she said, voice shaking. "I'm sorry, Emma," the lawyer said softly. "Legally, he can." She hung up and screamed into the emptiness of her living room, her voice raw and breaking. Then something inside her went quiet. Not numb, just silent, like a flame burning low but steady. She packed a small bag, grabbed her car keys, and drove to Ryan's house. She didn't care if she had to bang on the door all night. She needed answers. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds. The house looked the same, perfect lawn, polished windows, the porch light glowing faintly in the dusk. She parked at the curb, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. When she walked up the driveway, she noticed the silence first. No sound of music, no laughter, no movement. The curtains were drawn. She rang the doorbell. Nothing. She tried again, still nothing. Finally, she pushed the door. It creaked open. The air inside was stale. The living room was spotless, but strange. Too clean, too empty. The pictures on the walls were gone. The vases, the decorations, even the furniture, everything had vanished, except for faint outlines on the carpet where things used to be. Her heart pounded in her ears as she walked deeper into the house. "Ryan?" she called, her voice trembling. "Margot? Ashley?" No answer. She opened doors, checked rooms, even the kitchen, empty. The refrigerator was unplugged, drawers open, shelves bare. It was as if they'd never lived there. She stumbled into the hallway, panic rising in her chest. "Ryan!" she shouted again, her voice breaking. "Where are you?" Her words echoed through the hollow rooms and came back to her like ghosts. Then she saw it, on the floor near the front door, a single key, the one she'd given Ryan the day they got engaged. Her knees buckled as realization crashed over her. They hadn't just left. They'd erased themselves. Emma clutched the key in her shaking hand, her breath coming in sharp, uneven gasps. The house is empty. They vanished without a trace. The silence of an empty house is the loudest sound in the world. Emma sat in the middle of what used to be Ryan's living room, surrounded by nothing but bare walls and dust outlines. The key still rested in her trembling hand. It was all that was left of the life she thought she had. The police called it a civil matter. Her lawyer said it was unfortunate but legal. Everyone used The same phrase, airtight documents. That night she drove back to her grandmother's house, but it didn't feel like home anymore. The shadows felt longer, the rooms colder. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's smile, the same one he'd used to make her believe everything was safe. Days blurred together. The trust fund was gone, her accounts frozen. Even the car she drove was technically in his name now. Within a week, she was broke. Her friend Lucy, the one who had dragged her to the gala months ago, showed up unannounced one afternoon, finding Emma still in her robe, staring blankly at an untouched cup of tea. "Jesus, Em," Lucy whispered, looking around the half-packed house. "You can't stay here alone." "I don't have anywhere else," Emma murmured. "Yeah, you do. My guest room's empty. You're coming with me." Emma protested weakly, but Lucy wouldn't take no for an answer. By sunset, Emma found herself in Lucy's small apartment downtown, a cozy place filled with plants, old books, and a cat that immediately curled up on Emma's lap as if sensing she needed comfort. The first week there, she barely spoke. Lucy cooked, checked in, tried to make her laugh. But Emma was hollow. The world felt unreal. She moved through days like someone underwater, slow, detached, exhausted. She'd wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, hearing echoes of Marco's laughter, seeing Ryan's calm eyes as he'd said, "You weren't supposed to hear that yet." Sometimes she wondered if maybe this was all a nightmare she hadn't woken from. Her lawyer, Mr. Hayes, called her one morning with bad news. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said gently, "but we can't reverse the transfer. You signed it voluntarily, and the divorce has already been finalized in court." "Already?" she whispered. "How could that happen so fast?" They had a team of attorneys working non-stop. The documents were airtight. There's nothing left to fight. She hung up and sank to the floor, clutching the phone to her chest. Nothing left to fight. The words repeated in her head like a taunt. For days after that, she stayed in bed, curtains drawn, ignoring messages, ignoring the world. Then, one night, it came, an email. No subject line, no name, just a few words in bold letters. "They did this before. You're not the first." Emma sat up, heart pounding. Her hands shook as she clicked it open. The message was short. "I know what they took from you. They ruined my family too. If you want answers, don't call the police. Meet me at the cafe on 5th and Alder tomorrow at 3. Come alone." No signature. She read it 5 times. It could have been a scam, or worse, another setup. But something about it felt different. The tone wasn't threatening. It felt desperate, personal. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt something spark inside her. Curiosity, caution, hope. The next day, she put on her oldest coat and walked to the cafe. It was nearly empty, just a few students with laptops and an older couple by the window. She ordered black coffee and sat near the back, facing the door. Minutes passed. Then a man walked in. He was tall, mid-30s maybe, with dark hair, stubble, and tired eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in days. He scanned the room, spotted her, and approached slowly. "Emma Grace?" he asked quietly. She nodded, wary. "You sent the email?" He sat across from her, resting his hands on the table. "Name's Noah." They stared at each other for a moment, neither speaking. Then he said, "I know what Ryan and his people did to you, because they did the same thing to my sister." Emma froze. "Your sister?" Noah nodded, his expression grim. "Her name was Claire. She met them 5 years ago, same story. Different names, different city, same method. They made her fall in love, made her sign over everything, then disappeared. She tried to fight it, but the legal system couldn't touch them. A year later, His voice broke. He looked down. "She didn't make it." Emma's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry." He nodded slightly. You don't need to be sorry. You need to be angry. She looked at him, confused. What do you mean? I've been tracking them ever since, Noah said. Margot, Ryan, Ashley, if those are even their real names. They change identities, move state to state, pull the same con, then vanish. They're professionals. But I've been gathering evidence for years. Evidence? Financial records, property transfers, fake documents, even aliases. They leave patterns and I follow them. I've been close before, but I needed someone who was inside, someone they actually targeted. Emma frowned, trying to process. Why me? Because you're still alive, he said simply, and because you're the first one brave enough to confront them. Her pulse raced. You think we can stop them? I know we can, he said, but I can't do it alone anymore. She leaned back, still skeptical. How do I know you're not just another scammer? He gave a small, bitter smile. You don't, but I can prove I'm not. He pulled out a worn leather notebook from his jacket and slid it across the table. Inside were photos, documents, and names, all connected to Ryan, Margot, and Ashley. Emma's breath caught as she flipped through them. There was Ryan under a different name, Evan Blake. There was Margot, now Elaine, running a small foundation in another state. Ashley had a fake college record under the alias Samantha Lee. Dear God, Emma whispered, they've done this for years. Noah nodded, and they'll do it again unless we stop them. She looked up, her eyes glistening. Why are you helping me? He hesitated, then said quietly, because I couldn't save my sister. But maybe helping you will mean something. They sat in silence for a while, the hum of the cafe filling the spaces between their words. Finally, Noah said, There's something else, something I need you to see, but not here. What is it? He pulled a small black USB drive from his pocket and set it on the table. Everything I've found. Files, videos, names, transactions. Take it. Look at it when you're alone. Emma picked it up carefully. What's on it? Proof, he said simply. Then he stood. I'll be in touch. Before she could ask anything else, he left, disappearing into the afternoon crowd. Emma sat there for a long time, staring at the small drive in her palm. It felt heavier than metal, like it carried the weight of every lie, every stolen piece of her life. When she finally walked home, the sky was darkening. Rain began to fall, slow and cold, soaking her hair and coat, but she didn't care. For the first time since Ryan vanished, she felt purpose. She didn't know what was on that drive, but she was ready to find out. And something deep inside her whispered that once she did, nothing would ever be the same again. Emma couldn't sleep that night. The rain tapped against Lucy's window like a ticking clock, steady and relentless, matching the rhythm of her thoughts. The little USB drive sat on the Wayne nightstand beside her, reflecting the faint glow of the streetlight. She kept staring at it, wondering what kind of proof could be inside. Part of her wanted to plug it in right away, to finally see the truth. Another part of her, the broken, scared part, didn't want confirmation that her whole life had been nothing but a setup. Lucy knocked softly on the door and peeked in. You okay? You've been quiet all day. Emma forced a small smile. I'm fine, just tired. Lucy frowned. You're lying. I know that face. You're thinking too much again. Emma hesitated. She hadn't told Lucy about the email, or Noah. It wasn't that she didn't trust her friend. It was that this felt bigger than anyone could understand. I just need some time to figure things out, she said. Lucy studied her for a moment, then sighed. Okay, but don't stay up all night, all right? You look like you haven't slept in weeks. After Lucy left, Emma turned off the lamp and lay in the dark, eyes open, heart racing. At midnight, she sat up, turned the lamp back on, and reached for the USB. Her fingers trembled as she turned on her laptop and slid the small device into the port. The screen flickered. a single folder appeared. RMA Files. Her pulse quickened. She clicked it open. Inside were dozens of documents, contracts, bank statements, fake IDs. Each one confirmed what Noah had said. The names changed, but the faces didn't. Ryan, Margot, and Ashley, over and over again. Her eyes blurred as she scrolled. They'd done this to at least 7 people, some older, some young, men and women both. Every file ended the same way, a transfer of property, a marriage, a disappearance. But then she saw a folder labeled Video Logs and froze. There were 3 files inside, each named with a date. The earliest one was from almost a year before she'd met Ryan. She clicked it. For a second, the screen was black. Then a video began to play. It was grainy, recorded in what looked like a large living room. Ryan sat on a couch, leaning back, casually. Margot stood near him, holding a stack of papers. Ashley was seated at a table, scrolling through something on her phone. Emma's stomach twisted as she realized she recognized the setting. It was the same lake house where Ryan had proposed to her. Margot's voice was clear and sharp. The next one's a good match. Her name's Emma Grace, 26, no immediate family, inherited a trust fund last year, decent amount, mid-6 figures. Ashley looked up. You think she's gullible? Ryan smirked. She's lonely. That's better. Emma's heart stopped. Margot nodded approvingly. Good. Start slow this time. No big moves too early. We don't want them her calling her lawyer too soon. Ashley laughed. Should I reach out from a fake charity again? No, Margot said. We'll let her come to us this time. There's a gala next month, the one for the Animal Foundation. Perfect place for him to meet her. She's a donor. Ryan leaned forward, his voice casual, confident. Don't worry, I'll make her fall fast. Margot smiled. Of course you will. You always do. The video ended there. Emma stared at the screen, unable to move, unable to breathe. Her mind screamed, but no sound came out. Her life, the moments she'd treasured, the love she thought was real, had been scripted, months before she even knew his name. She closed the laptop slowly, her hands trembling uncontrollably. The room felt smaller, colder. The air itself seemed to turn against her. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor. Tears came hot and fast, not from heartbreak this time, but from something deeper. Rage. A slow-burning fury that started in her chest and spread like wildfire. They hadn't just stolen her money. They'd stolen her sense of reality, her trust, her identity. Margot's voice echoed in her head. Just a few more weeks until the papers are signed. Ryan's calm tone followed. You weren't supposed to hear that yet. She pressed her palms to her temples, shaking. How could they do this to me? She whispered. How many others? The laptop dinged softly, drawing her attention back to the screen. Another file had opened automatically, one labeled Personal Notes. At the top was a single line, handwritten and scanned. Margot isn't his mother. Emma frowned, confusion slicing through her fog of anger. The next page revealed more, typed neatly. Margot Carter, equals Margot Ryan, legal spouse, married 18 years. Daughter, Ashley Ryan, born 2002. Her pulse froze. She read it again, slower this time, her vision blurring at the edges. Margot wasn't his mother. She was his wife. Ashley was their daughter. The air left her lungs all at once. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white as the world spun around her. All those family dinners, the motherly affection, the sisterly friendship, the warmth, the laughter, the tears at her wedding, every moment, every gesture, every word. All of it was a lie. A family that didn't exist. A husband who was already married. A life built from nothing but careful performance. She felt sick. Her stomach turned violently. She barely made it to the bathroom before she threw up, shaking from head to toe. When she finally staggered back to the bed, she collapsed, drenched in sweat, sobbing quietly into the pillow so Lucy wouldn't hear. Hours passed before she sat up again. Her face was pale, eyes red, but there was something new there, something colder, determination. She wiped her face and whispered to herself, "They played me, but I'm not done." Her gaze drifted back to the laptop, the USB drive still glowing faintly in the dark. She clicked on the second video file, hands steady this time. The screen lit up. It was Ryan again, same living room, same couch, but now there was a board behind him, covered in photos, and there, right in the center, was her face. He pointed to it with a marker and smiled. "All right, let's run through the first meeting again." Emma froze, her eyes wide with horror. On the screen, Ryan turned to Margot and said, "I'll say the champagne line again. It worked last time." He straightened his tie, looked into the camera, and repeated the words that had started it all. "Let me guess. You're either allergic to champagne or hiding from someone." The same tone, the same smile, the same moment she'd thought was fate. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it echo in her ears. The camera panned slightly, showing Margot off-screen, saying, "Perfect, Ryan. Charming, innocent, and a little funny. She'll eat it up." Ryan chuckled. "They always do." Emma's fingers hovered above the keyboard, frozen in disbelief. Her whole body trembled. The screen glowed in the dark as she whispered, barely audible, "Oh my God." The camera zoomed in on Ryan's face as he leaned closer and said to Margot, "Don't worry. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." The video paused automatically as the file ended. Emma stared, her face pale, her heart shattered, her breathing shallow. And then she saw it. At the bottom of the folder, one final file appeared on its own, time-stamped just days before her wedding. It was labeled simply, "Final Test." Her shaking hand moved the cursor toward it. She double-clicked. The screen went black for a moment, then the video loaded. The first image that appeared made her blood run cold. It was her, sitting alone in her own living room, crying over a cup of coffee months ago. The camera zoomed slowly, capturing every tear, every sigh, every word she'd whispered to herself. Her hand flew to her mouth as realization hit. They hadn't just planned her downfall. They had been watching her the whole time. She stared in horror as the camera angle shifted again, and there, in the corner of the frame, she saw Ryan holding a script in his hand. Her script, the one they had rehearsed months before they even met. The days after the discovery were a blur of fury and sleepless nights. Emma watched those videos over and over until every laugh, every fake smile, every scripted word carved itself into her memory like scars. She no longer cried. The tears had dried up, replaced by something colder, steady. She sent Noah a message at dawn. "I saw everything. I'm in." He replied a few minutes later, "Good, then we're starting today." They met in an old diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one asked questions. Noah looked exhausted but focused, a storm brewing behind his tired eyes. Emma sat across from him, gripping her coffee cup like a lifeline. "They deserve to burn," she said quietly. Noah nodded. "Then let's make sure they do." He opened his laptop and laid out the plan. It was simple, dangerous, and poetic. They would turn Ryan and Margot's game against them. "You're going to become their next mark," he said. Emma frowned. "You mean pretend to be the target?" He shook his head. "No, we make them think you're gone. Then we make them think there's someone new, someone richer, someone perfect for their next con. And we'll lead them straight into the trap." She stared at him, the corners of her mouth tightening. "And who's the new target?" Noah smiled grimly. "Us." Together, they built new identities. Emma became Evelyn Hart, an heiress recently returned from Europe after inheriting her family's luxury art company. Noah became Daniel Hale, her charming fiancé, an investor known for his extravagant spending. They created social media profiles that looked expensive and convincing. Champagne dinners, yacht photos, charity events. Emma wore sleek clothes, posted soft smiles, and captioned her photos with carefully crafted vulnerability. They didn't have the money, but they had the illusion. And illusion was what Ryan's family fed on. It took only 3 weeks for the bait to work. One morning, Noah's phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. Margot. "Hello, Mr. Hale. My name's Elaine Moore. My husband and I run a private investment network for families of your caliber. We'd love to discuss opportunities." Noah looked up at Emma, his jaw tightening. "It's her." Emma's heart began to pound, but she forced herself to smile. "Good, let's reel them in." For the next 2 weeks they played their roles flawlessly. Noah handled the financial conversations, confident and charming, while Emma appeared in video calls dressed in elegant pastels, her tone polite but distant, the perfect wealthy fiancée. Margot, or Elaine, was smooth as ever. Her voice dripped with warmth, her compliments perfectly timed. "You remind me so much of my son-in-law Daniel," she told Noah once, her smile wide and false. Emma clenched her jaw through every meeting, fighting the urge to scream. Ryan appeared later, introducing himself as Eric Moore, Elaine's son. He looked the same, just slightly older, his hair shorter, his smile still perfectly rehearsed. When his face appeared on Emma's laptop screen for the first time, her stomach turned. He didn't recognize her. Not yet. He smiled that familiar, confident smile. "You and Evelyn make quite the couple. I'm sure we'll all get along very well." Emma forced a polite laugh. "I'm sure we will." After the call, she slammed her laptop shut, trembling. "I can't do this," she whispered, "seeing him, hearing him talk like nothing happened." Noah reached across the table, his voice calm. "You can, and you will. Every word you speak to them now gets us one step closer to taking them down." She nodded slowly, breathing through the anger. They began recording everything, every call, every message, every document Margot sent. Noah worked with a tech expert who helped trace the emails and confirm their fake business network was being used to launder money. Emma watched as the evidence piled up like bricks for a wall she'd soon bury them behind. But the plan needed one final step: exposure. Noah had a contact, a journalist named Alicia Ward, famous for her investigations into white-collar crime. When she heard the story, she didn't hesitate. "I've been chasing them for years," Alicia said over the phone, "but I never had direct victims willing to go public. If we do this right, they won't just lose their money, they'll lose their lives as they know them." Emma felt her chest tighten, a mix of fear and determination. Then let's do it right. The final stage of the plan was set for the following month. Margot had invited Daniel and Evelyn to a private fundraising gala in the city, a glamorous event filled with investors and socialites. It was the perfect setting for them to flaunt their fake connections and start the con. What they didn't know was that the event was wired with hidden cameras. Alicia's team had set up feeds at every corner, ready to broadcast the moment Emma gave the signal. The night of the gala, Emma stood before a mirror, adjusting her diamond earrings with shaking hands. Her reflection looked powerful, the kind of woman Ryan's family would never expect her to become. But beneath the polished surface, her heart raced. Noah walked in, adjusting his tie. "You ready?" She looked at him in the mirror. "Not really." He smiled faintly. "Good. Means you still care." They drove to the hotel in silence. The grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers and the hum of wealth. Ryan and Margot were already there, laughing and mingling like royalty. When Ryan saw her, his eyes flicked with interest. Not recognition yet, just curiosity. He extended his hand. "Evelyn Hart, right? I've heard so much about you." Emma took it, her grip steady. "All good things, I hope." Margot approached, radiant in silver. "You're even lovelier in person," she said sweetly. "My husband and I are thrilled to have you here." Emma smiled. "I'm thrilled to meet you both." They chatted for almost half an hour. Emma's voice was calm, her laughter practiced. But inside, every muscle in her body screamed. Every second felt like fire under her skin. Then, as the lights dimmed and the evening's host invited everyone to raise a glass, Noah caught her eye from across the room. It was time. Emma stepped onto the small stage near the podium, her heels clicking softly against the floor. The crowd turned. Margot and Ryan smiled up at her, proud and unsuspecting. She gripped the microphone and smiled faintly. "Good evening, everyone. Before we continue, I'd like to share a story." Ryan chuckled lightly, leaning toward Margot. Didn't know she was giving a speech. Emma took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she continued. "It's a story about love," she said softly, her voice steadying with each word. "And betrayal. About people who pretend to care just long enough to take everything from you." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Ryan's smile faltered. Emma locked eyes with him and didn't look away. "It's about a woman who believed she was marrying into a family," she said, her voice rising. "A family that told her she was special, that she belonged, that she was loved. But it was all a lie." Margot's face stiffened. Ryan's jaw clenched. Emma turned slightly toward the audience, her expression calm but her voice trembling with emotion. "That family," she pointed toward Ryan and Margot, "is right here in this room." Gasps erupted across the ballroom. Cameras flashed. Ryan stood up, his face pale. "What the hell are you doing?" Emma ignored him. "These people aren't who they say they are. They've changed their names, stolen millions, and destroyed lives, mine included." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small remote. "And I have proof." With a single click, the large screen behind her flickered to life. The video played, the same one from Noah's USB. Ryan on camera, rehearsing his lines, Margot calling Emma's name like it was a business transaction, Ashley laughing in the background. The room went dead silent. Margot's face drained of color. Ryan stepped forward, panic rising. "This is fake," he shouted. "She's lying. That's not real footage." Emma cut him off, her voice sharp. "It's real. Every second of it." Security guards moved closer. Reporters were already recording. Alicia Ward stood at the back, her camera team streaming live. Emma turned back to the audience. "They made me believe in love so they could steal my inheritance. They've done this to others, and they would have done it again. But tonight, they don't get to disappear." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "Tonight, everyone sees them for who they really are." Margot tried to leave, but the doors were already blocked. Police officers entered the ballroom. Ryan's face twisted in fury as they approached. "You think this changes anything?" he hissed. Emma met his eyes one last time, her voice calm, almost pitying. "It changes everything." As the officers cuffed him, Alicia's camera zoomed in, capturing the moment Ryan's mask finally cracked. No charm, no confidence, just the hollow eyes of a man who'd run out of lies. The crowd erupted in whispers, flashes, chaos. Emma stood still at the center of it all, her heart pounding like thunder. Noah stepped beside her, his hand light on her shoulder. "It's done," he whispered. She exhaled slowly, a single tear escaping down her cheek. "Yeah," she said, "it's finally done." The police moved quickly once the footage went public. Within hours, the ballroom that had once been filled with laughter and luxury became a crime scene. Guests whispered and filmed as Ryan and Margot were led away in handcuffs, their perfect image collapsing under the weight of the truth. Alicia's team followed the entire story live. The moment Emma stepped off the stage, her name was already trending online. Hashtag the bride who exposed them. Reporters flooded her with questions as officers pushed the crowd back. Emma, how long did they con you? Did you know Margot wasn't his mother? Are you pressing charges? Emma said nothing. She just kept walking, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her expression calm but her eyes distant. Noah was waiting outside in the hotel's parking lot. When she finally reached him, she exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for years. They're gone, she whispered. Noah nodded. Not gone. Exposed. There's a difference. She managed a small, shaky smile. By morning, the story had exploded across every network. The footage from the gala was everywhere. Ryan's smug face, Margot's cold stare, Emma's trembling but fearless confession. Alicia Ward's article went viral within hours. The headline read, "The Perfect Family That Never Existed, How a Con Couple Scammed Love and Money Across States." It was brutal, detailed, precise. Every alias, every scam, every stolen dollar, laid bare. Ryan Carter, real name Ryan Blake, was wanted in 3 states for fraud and identity theft. Margot, or Margot Ryan Blake, was his legal wife and partner in every scheme. Ashley was, confirmed to be their daughter, often used as bait to create the illusion of a perfect family. The shocking part? Ryan had once belonged to a real wealthy family, the Blakes of New Hampshire, old money, powerful, and deeply private. But he'd been disinherited nearly 15 years ago after being caught stealing from his own relatives. His parents had cut him off completely, changing their names to escape the scandal. Since then, Ryan had been recreating fake families, each one designed to look wholesome and trustworthy, to target lonely, wealthy women. Emma read the report in silence, her hands trembling slightly. Every paragraph hurt, but in a strange way it also freed her. Noah glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "I think so. I mean, I'm angry, but I'm not broken anymore." He gave her a quiet smile. "That's something." The investigation stretched for weeks. More victims came forward, women from different states, different years, all with the same story. The police recovered stolen assets and digital records that traced back to Margot and Ryan's offshore accounts. A month later, Emma sat in court as the judge read the verdict. Ryan and Margot were sentenced to decades in prison. Ashley, being younger and proven to have played a minor role, received probation and mandatory counseling. Ryan looked at Emma once during the sentencing, his eyes dull, his jaw tight. There was no charm left, no words to spin. She held his gaze for a second, then looked away. Noah sat beside her, his hand resting lightly over hers. "You did it," he whispered. Emma nodded. "We did." After the trial, she didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. Justice had been done. Instead, she focused on rebuilding what was left of her life, not the money, but herself. Through Alicia's article, donations poured in from strangers all over the country. People wanted to help, to support, to thank her for speaking out. But Emma didn't want to keep it. She met with Alicia and Noah one evening at the same cafe where she'd first met him. "I want to start something," she said, her voice firm. "A foundation. For women like me. For anyone manipulated or scammed through love. People don't realize how deep it cuts." Alicia smiled. "That's a powerful idea." Emma looked at Noah. "Would you help me run it?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I think Claire would have wanted that." They called it the Grace Foundation, after Emma's grandmother, the woman whose strength had always lived quietly inside her. Within months, it became a network of support and legal resources for victims of financial and emotional fraud. Emma poured her settlement money into it, never once regretting it. She didn't care about being rich anymore. She cared about meaning. One quiet evening, Almost a year later, Emma drove to the coast alone. The sky was soft with streaks of pink and orange as the sun sank into the horizon. She walked barefoot along the sand, the cold water touching her toes. Each wave that broke against the shore felt like a heartbeat, calm, steady, alive. After everything, she didn't crave revenge anymore. She craved peace. Noah joined her a few minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Figured you'd be here," he said. Emma smiled faintly, taking 1 cup. Old habits. They stood in silence for a long time, watching the waves roll in. "You ever think about him?" Noah asked quietly. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Not in the way I used to. I don't hate him anymore, I just don't care." "That's how you know you've healed," he said softly. She nodded, taking a slow sip of coffee. The ocean breeze lifted her hair, carrying away the last traces of the woman she once was. The one who trusted blindly, who believed love always meant safety. Now she knew better. Love could heal, but it could also destroy. And sometimes the most powerful kind of love was the one you learned to give yourself after everything else was gone. The sky deepened into twilight and she turned to Noah. "Do you think it ever really ends? The pain?" He thought for a moment. "Maybe not completely, but I think it changes shape, becomes something you can live with." She smiled faintly. "Yeah, I like that." They sat down on the sand, side by side, not saying much. Just the sound of waves, distant gulls, and the steady hum of peace. Emma pulled out her phone and opened the Grace Foundation's website. Hundreds of messages filled the screen. Women thanking her, sharing their stories, finding courage because she had spoken first. She felt her chest tighten, but this time not from pain, from pride. Her life hadn't ended the day Ryan disappeared. It had just started over. She closed her phone and watched the horizon fade into night. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. She wasn't healed, not completely, but she was healing.